Morning. The good news about a lousy day, you don't mind being inside in the basement of a hotel. So glad you're here. And I get the pleasure of representing information that was created by a lot of other gifted people. And I'm just kind of your basic talking head here. So I want to briefly say that in the room, this is the 21st annual CIO Survey. And I have not been here for all 21 of them, I promise you. Previous 10 of them were honchoed by Paul Willeben, who's about 2/3 of the way back there. Paul, thank you very much. Kind of created the foundation for this. Want to thank Grant Thornton for giving me the time to kind of oversee this process. Steve Perkins, who manages the government practices here somewhere. There he is. Thank you, Steve. Steve Clyburn is one of those folks who takes all of these disparate findings and creates sense out of them and so forth. So he's kind of the godfather of the information. And Amber Vinton and Sheila Poindexter. And then, the support that we've gotten in the partnership, both in the federal committee with Debbie and Leslie Berry, who's my vice chair on this effort. I don't know whether Leslie's here yet, but there she is. Thank you, Leslie. And then Renee. Basically, Renee, she glows in the dark here because she arranged these interviews, right? So this is like a very hard thing to do. Olga, Jennifer, Zach, and Angelica. Again, there's a lot of folks behind the scene. This is really tough stuff to do. Okay. So now I'll talk a little bit about the findings of the survey. This is. And it's really, kind of a pretty document. We know how to do that really well. But it's got some really very good content to it. And these are the areas specifically that I will speak to. I'm going to talk for maybe 25 or 30 minutes here, and then hopefully time for Q&A. I want to just kind of drop back for a second, because I sat through quite a few of these interviews myself, and also for a period of time I were one. And I just want to kind of give you a backdrop for, the answers you're getting during this transformational time. What it's like to be a CIO in the federal government. First of all, in addition to the fact that you have this large budget to manage, you have the significant opportunity to answer questions from OMB, the Hill, and your own agency about what you're doing on a daily basis. Your leadership changes every 18 to 24 months. So you may get another gifted human being that will come in and decide that the project you're working on very successfully isn't on their radar screen. So as a person who's been on both sides of this, in the private and public sector, what we're talking about here is a significant opportunity for improvement beyond what a private sector CIO or CTO can experience. And then to add to the fact that 95, 90, 85, depending of the stuff that you do is contracted for. And there's kind of a moat between the CIO, and you're going to hear this in the survey, between the CIO and acquisition and so forth. You kind of throw it over the wall, it gets acquired, and then how do you keep that connectivity between the acquisition process as well as what you're trying to do from a technology standpoint. We actually did 46 interviews, and this was a very good number given the circumstances of everybody being busy in this very challenging budget time. January through April, we kind of slid it to the right, and I think it served us well. You can look in the back of the beautiful document that you have and see all the wonderful TechAmerica partners who did the interviews. So folks really gave a lot of their time. You might want to take a look at that. And again, an important thing in being able to talk to these good folks in the federal government is that nothing that they've told us is for attribution. So the information in there is unanimous, anonymous, and it's not for attribution. So this is the kind of the unvarnished point of view in terms of what's happening for a CIO, CTO, technology executive in the federal government. Looking at the capital planning and investment process, two things we asked here. both from a department and agency standpoint, is how flexible is the capital planning process. In the department, not so much, right? A 2 on a scale of 5. And in the agency, a 3. So again, the messages that we heard from almost universally, and I did go through all of the comments on these things, is that this is about setting business, also known as mission priorities, in your agency or entity. And then also you can see that, previously we were focused on refreshing infrastructure. And so, rising tide floats all boats. So what you hear now is a shift from that, which is still important, that's still being done, that's part of consolidation in cloud, but more of a focus on what is the matter of the mission or the business and focusing the resources in that manner. Some of the things that we heard in terms of the capital planning process was useful was to have more frequent and informal meetings. If you wait until you're about to make a budget decision with the people in your room and you don't even know who they are, the likelihood of a positive outcome is not that great. So what we heard is that these folks are creating long-term relationships with the other CXOs in the agencies, CFO, CIO, Deputy Secretary. Some of this is legislated, some of it is not. And these informal meetings mean that when you get to the moment of truth, when you're making budget decisions, it's a much more effective and useful decision. Raise IRB a level. That's kind of code for make this a mission and agency thing, not an IT thing. Push it up. Have the CIO sitting at the table with the other CXOs, etc. And then, if you look at the background of the people that we talked to, almost all of the CIOs and CTOs have extraordinary private sector experience. The universal feedback we got was, and again, I was author of the 300s and 58s and OB, so, and we knew this, and the folks in there now know this. We would like to make this much more succinct. We'd like to make this much more business and mission-oriented, brief, consolidated, summarized, and so that's a work in progress. In looking at the role of the CIO, the CIOs are rarely in control of all of the IT investments. I think the most ubiquitous construct in the federal government is a federated view. And it's more often than not federated at the agency level and then federated even within the bureaus. So you've got 2 levels of federation. And so it makes this a very, very difficult thing to do to manage the IT investments. And again, what we heard universally is creating these CIO, CFO mission relationship kind of conversations is very, very important. Also, creating visibility and transparency in the process promotes self-correcting behavior. We'll talk a little bit more in a minute about the dashboard and those types of things. But making the decisions that you're making more transparent and the adjustment of those decisions enables kind of self-correction. So what we heard was increasingly folks are trying to make these IT decisions more transparent, not just an IT decision, more a mission decision, and it's in the title of our survey here, enabling mission performance by injecting significant investment in operation and technology. If you look at the capital planning and investment process, starting out with portfolio management as your select circles, how do you pick the vital few? 70% of the CIOs are using some type of a reliable, effective portfolio management process, so picking the vital few. Controlling and monitoring the decisions that you made. This becomes the dashboard. It becomes the internal accountability dashboards. How do you have ongoing monitoring And then the more of the, the evaluate becomes your tech stat. The every so often review of how you're doing in the federal government with what I discussed with you early on with the changing in leadership, the infinite wisdom of OMB saying, I'm here to help you. The Hill always asking those learned questions. All those types of things. Knowing where you are at any point in time becomes even more important. And then lastly in this area, the need to have an end-to-end view of this rather than a stovepipe view of this. Again, this isn't a surprise to anybody, but as you can imagine, doing this kind of thing in the federal government is a significant challenge. But vast majority of the CIOs and IT executives said this is very important, and they're making progress at that. Acquisition reform. Again, as I discussed briefly early on, the IT community and the acquisition community both recognize the necessity to work together closely. And so what we heard from the CIOs and the IT executives in the federal government is that it's a team sport. You have to work closely with the mission owner, the process owner, IT professionals, contracting officers, COTARs. And again, this is not a trivial act. But what you find is you get these folks in a room and you talk about these kind of disparate points of view, and you find out that they really aren't that different. So it's kind of funny, the IT folks think that the procurement people need to know more about IT, and the procurement people think that the IT people need to know about procurement, and the answer to the question is yes. And so more government-wide service contracts. Again, they all see the need for this. They see that the inefficiencies of divide and conquer. Obviously this point of view is supported when you start to do consolidation activities, be it cloud or data center consolidation. It points you towards having more reliable government-wide capabilities, and they view that as very important. Two parts to our CIO survey is the questions we do face-to-face, and then there's also mentioned in here the state of the CIO survey, which we give them in advance and collect. One of the things we ask them is to give us the most significant barriers, and you can see this is kind of a duh, right? But it's nice that it turned out that way. We went from inadequate budgets being number 3 since forever to number 1. So again, it's nice that the survey supported what we would all think would be the case. Again, number 2 and right behind it, and again, this is very close behind, is conflicting priorities among program units. Are we going to play together? Are we going to make more useful, have a better outcome with the investment dollars that we have? Shortage of time in strategic planning, and then, obviously, aligning efforts with agency goals. And again, the most important thing here is budget is at the top of the list, but these other 4 significant barriers are very close behind. In looking at resources, and this is both IT resources as well as human capital resources, and looking at lowering costs. Obviously lowering cost has the highest priority. As was mentioned earlier, having to cut cost is kind of a silver lining to a cloud. When you're told that you have less money to work with, less resources to work with, less people to work with, it forces you to rationalize your spend. So all of these good people are being forced to rationalize their spend. They have effectively used portfolio management, selection of the vital few. And there is extraordinary pressure to justify every program expense. And they've actually, again, this gets to the issue of transparency. Folks who basically wave the flag and say, look, I don't understand this, they're coming to the table and being honest and forthright about that is being rewarded and encouraged. In the private sector, as you know, operations and maintenance, routinely you carve money out of operations and maintenance and redeploy that to new investment. That's what's starting to happen here. It becomes really difficult when a budget is lower because a couple of the CIOs said that they don't view the term legacy system as being germane anymore. Because some of these systems they're realizing, because of the nature of the decreasing investment, that the legacy systems are turning into what you got. And also what you're going to have. So for the first time we're hearing about, legacy not necessarily being the operative word on this, but at the same time looking for those areas where you can, as was mentioned earlier, a certain percentage of this can be moved to the cloud, but it's not 100%. And then really looking at, and this is flavored throughout the answers that you get, which is really good, is that it's all about the mission. And rationalizing your spend to the mission. So, again, looking at their priorities on the spend, it's pretty much, the first three were actually just about a dead tie. Integration of systems and process. It means that IT is your process. And then implementing privacy and security measures. Everybody believes that security is your ticket to ride in this. And even though these other next three are right behind the first three. So, you can see the nature of the challenge that these CIOs have in terms of their priorities and what they're attempting to do. The other part of this is the workforce, and the vast majority, just about everyone that we asked about this was very bullish about the nature of their mixed workforce. There's not a problem here. They understand the necessity for it, and they are operating and very pretty much pleased with that. Obviously, a couple of the folks said we really need folks to manage programs and projects that are superstars. So you see, if you look into the program management area and so forth, you see that a substantial portion of those program and project management jobs are going up, being moved into government. And they're looking for folks that have PMPs, PGMPs, years of experience and so forth. They realize that this is critical. This is inherently government work. So you see that going up. You see IT security going up significantly. And again, IT security, all you have to do is, if anybody called up Sony today and asked them if security was important, I think that would kind of give you an idea as to how important security is. It is mandatory that you invest the dollars into security. In my cloud days, the farther upstream you fix a problem, the less it costs you. Their recovery on that is going to be in the billions of dollars. If they'd have done it right upstream, it would have been in the millions of dollars. So you can see the nature of the investment in moving those resources inside. The contracting resources are continuing to go up, but just about at the same rate as they're going down in the program management area. And obviously IT security is increasing. And then, kind of my part of the world when I was in OMB, there's more of a government expenditure in enterprise architecture. And this is really a method of connecting your mission outcomes to your investment in technology. So it seemed logical that the investment in that would also be going up. The other issue in terms of the workforce is the idea of having more agility in the workforce, continuing education, investment in continuing education, both encouraging it internally and externally. And then the last one, and we kind of heard the flavor of this in terms of the approach of GSA, is the fact that we really have to get much smarter about the way we manage and do our acquisition of external resources, be they human beings or IT capability. One thing I wanted to note, I meant to mention up front, if you'll look in the glossy, you'll see that there's notes in each one of the sections that kind of cross-references the conversation with the 25-point plan. So you'll see that there's a direct cross-reference between what we heard from the CIOs and that, and obviously Dave's going to head up a really nice panel of folks in our next session around the 25-point plan. So you're going to have opportunities to really talk to folks who we talked to, because we did talk to everybody that's in that panel. And so you can ask them directly, what did you mean by that in terms of some of the stuff that was reported out in the survey. The Open Government Directive has had wide-reaching, and by the way, it's in effect, 2/3 of those of the respondents, the interviewees, indicated that they've seen a very positive impact of the Open Government Directive. It has taken a bit of a hit, especially when you consider the issue of the WikiLeaks experience. Again, it points us back to, if you're going to be open, you've got to be very clear in terms of what you're making open, and making sure that you ask the customer citizen what they want to see, and make sure that that's properly controlled. Be clear on what the decision-making process that drives the sharing and the open and transparency of the data. And then, everybody, and again, this will be in the conversation in terms of the Facebook, etc., is making sure you put it where the citizen is normally used to seeing it. And so, and increasingly, again, the vast majority of the folks we interviewed are, in fact, doing that. Data released to the public should also be used by internal managers. So, again, we'll talk a little bit about the dashboards. It's great to have a dashboard facing the public. Inside of that, you need to have accountability dashboards. And then really developing government-wide standards and practices and metrics around what you share and what you don't. So one of our favorite topics is the dashboard. I would say that the universal conversation around this from everybody was, good idea needs work. For those of us, Kathy and some of the others, we early on had an opportunity to comment on the dashboard when it was in its infancy, and I'm happy to say that majority of what we made comment about is showing up here and is being reinforced by what the CIOs are saying to us. And and a lot of this is blinding flash of the obvious, but it's nice to see these leaders indicate that it's so important. It must be kept up to date, must be relevant, and you must have the ability to do a relevant drill down. And so, when you look at the Exhibit 300, and again, you all know this as well as I do, that's like driving looking into your rear view mirror. It's stuff that's already happened. So they're increasingly in their accountability dashboards, as well as in dealing with the government-wide federal IT dashboard, they're looking at real-time, relevant, reoccurring kind of information. And doing, obviously, the program management and reviews, and then the use of a standard method of EVM across the federal government. There's different flavors of EVM. How do you do EVM? How do I do EVM? Well, excuse me. It needs to be standard definition. Again, it needs to be an indication of your progress, and so it needs to take you somewhere. It's not just getting your ONB EVM punch card done. Tech stack. Again, I think the comments here were similar to the dashboard in that work in progress. 70% of the folks that we interviewed have participated in tech stacks. And so if you think of those three circles again, where you do portfolio management, and then you have a government-wide dashboard, accountability dashboard within the agency or entity, and then you review to see how you're doing, and then you loop back. That's what this is. And people recognize the value of tech stack. They believe, again, it promotes healthy behavior. Most importantly here, it makes the CIO more visible. It encourages having the right people at the table. So, and again, you'll look in there in the document, and you'll see that they actually have a a template for where people should sit in these things, right? And you say, why would you have that? Well, it's just to make sure that you have the right people. You have the best chance to have the right people have the right conversation. And so the folk that it forces group decisions. And so right now, it's incomplete in that you have OMB in the room, you have the agency in the room. You sometimes don't have the mission owner in the room, you have the CIO in the room, you have procurement in the room. You don't have contractors in the room. You have contractors spending hundreds of millions of dollars preparing govies to have a conversation with OMB without them being in the room, when 95% of the work is being done by contractors. Makes no sense. Makes no sense to the CIOs either. So all of the dashboard issues have an impact on these tech stat sessions, and what they're saying is when they see the ones that are most effective, it's when you have the mission owner, the CIO, the CFO, the procurement executive, the OMB, the contractor, everybody in the room reviewing these major programs and projects and really determining what needs to be done. Do your homework ahead of time so you can have those kind of conversations. Review whole areas, not just projects. This goes to the end-to-end conversation. Include contractors, etc. And the other thing about this that they said is, and again, I experienced this in the private sector, a lot of times you do these reviews, things may be going well, but things may be going so well you actually have to spend more money. So not only do you need to be prepared when you do these tech stat sessions to adjust down, but you need to be ready to adjust up even when things are going well. And they made a specific point of mentioning that multiple times. Cybersecurity. And again, all of us know how important this is in our personal lives. And basically the common comment here is that cybersecurity is the responsibility of the mission leadership of the federal government. The CIO is, in that community, is the how. So there needs to be a partnership. And again, those of you all who have been in IT as long as I have, you know that you have to bake this in up front. But we're learning that even more and more as we push more of our information, mission information to the cloud, etc. Outsourcing, it makes that even more important. Need common objective views. Guidance is not the issue. They feel like they're getting more guidance than they need from OMB. Perish the thought, right? I'm from OMB, I'm here to help you, right? But in fact, they feel like they have plenty of guidance. They're lacking in information. So universally, and some of, again, there's a gradation here. Some of these agencies are doing packet sniffing and have real-time information on exactly what's happening in the bit stream for their entity or agency. And there's some that don't. But those are the things, if policy directs that you review those kinds of things, what they're saying is that basically it points you in the direction of everybody doing it, which is good to do. Shared solutions. And certainly we've all talked about cloud. A vast majority of the CIOs have active or pilot cloud projects. For the most part, certainly they're under the good work of Dave and McClure and other folks at GSA and helping OMB with both what should be in the cloud first as well as the security issues there, which are very important. Email, back office, etc. a majority of the CIOs have active plans to go to the cloud. They view the activity in GSA around FedRAMP universally as being critical. We don't need to figure out this security thing multiple times. It's something that we need a reliable method, and therefore we can all value from it. Then the last issue here is to ensure that we're dealing with everything that we should be, and not on both the cloud and consolidation, don't leave needed apps and personnel behind by mistake. Constantly revisit this and make sure that you're addressing the real opportunities for progress in doing these consolidation efforts. Also in the shared solutions area of social media, the social media users now average 40 years of age. Everybody in our house is a social media user. Sometimes it's inflicted on me by my daughter, and sometimes I inflict it on her. So, this is a ubiquitous capability. They're doing social media and collaboration pilots. They're developing an appropriate architecture. Again, going back to the previous conversation, you've got to understand there has to be processes that indicate what does the citizen want to see, how do they want to see it, what are the security and privacy issues. They are using social media as business tools in their agencies right now. So this is not something we're thinking about, wishing about, going to do. This is happening right now. And then they're emulating social media internally with internal chats, blogs, collaboration sites, etc. So, if you look at the findings of last year's CIO survey, the 20th, we were thinking about doing this. There's been extraordinary progress made here in actually doing it and knowing more about it. So that we can allow plenty of time for questions, and also I'm between you and a break. The conclusions around this obviously are shifting from a one-size-fits-all, rising tide floats all boat, investment in infrastructure and systems to lowering costs, but also integrating project management and focusing on specific mission improvement imperatives. And again, it flavored throughout the entire survey is the importance of governance, and the fact that governance does not mean the CIO. Governance means the CIO, Chief Procurement Officer, CFO, Deputy Secretary, where folks are making progress in these types of transformational efforts, that governance occurs. Be better IT buyers. We buy a vast majority of the IT that we use in the federal government. Good start on the dashboard and tech stat. Ways to go. Good start. Keep at it. This next one is so important. Everyone that we talked to universally said we've got to hire the best and brightest in the inherently government positions: program, project management, security, etc. And you saw that the hiring in those areas is up. And then obviously cybersecurity is truly top of the heap as far as what are the specific areas that we should be investing in and ensuring that we get it right. I guess the net on all of this is, I'll put it in my own terms, do things the way you've always done it and you expect a different outcome, da-da-da-da. So what it says is, if we're truly going to utilize IT to transform the performance of government, we're going to have to manage it a lot better than we do today, and that's what we heard consistently from the CIOs and IT executives that participated in this survey. So, with that, questions? Okay, if there isn't any questions, I will be around for the balance of the day, and I think it's a break. 15 minutes, and then what we'll do is convene the panel at 10:45. It's actually, you have a little bit of extra time. 10:45 we'll convene the 25-point plan panel. Thank you so much.